Hello, everyone. So I'm very, very pleased to be on here to connect with you all. This is going to be a psychic forecast for the entire month of May, or an energy report. And generally, I will usually channel a higher group of intelligence, an extraterrestrial force that I work with called the Nine, the White Wing Collective Consciousness of Nine. And with this particular video, I'm going to take it down a few notches and just level with you guys, because whenever I do forecasts, it's more about giving practical information that you can utilize, that's digestible, that can give you a grasp on what's going on. So we're going to be bringing forward a very Syrian energy today. Predominantly, I'm a Syrian with some Arcturian in there, and then the main group I work with are Arcturian beings. But I'm just naturally wired to be Syrian, so this is going to be more of my Syrian aspect connecting with you all today. So when it comes to the relationships that you've had, the friendships that you've had, many of you have experienced or are experiencing right now a falling out where there's been no communication due to misunderstandings or due to a squabble that you might have had. And I want you to really think of this, because this quote came to me today. This download I got was, if they can't see that they hurt you, then they're not awake enough yet. If they can't see that they hurt you, they're not awake enough yet. I know that a lot of people watching this video right now have a tendency to be the fixer-uppers, that whenever something goes south in your relationship, that you're the one who starts to miss them, and then you are the one to place the call and show initiative to repair that dynamic. Now, what I want to say is that it's always, always, always advisable to own up to everything that you do. So if you've hurt someone, then absolutely pick up your phone and apologize. But the energy I'm getting around this month is that feeling of pining for your twin flame or your soulmate or a good friend that you parted ways with is going to be coming in with full force, with a gust. Okay? Now, in the past, the group I'm referring to now is, who are watching this, you have been the ones to reach back out and fix it, because you feel very uncomfortable when there is separation in the mix. Because as a starseed, your job and your task is to unify everything, to bring everything back into a space of harmony and oneness and love. But if that's been your pattern, to always be the one to reach back out, even after you've apologized, even after, if you were to look at your text right now, at the last exchange that you had with this person, did you apologize? Yes. If you haven't, then you might be on the flip side, but I'm just speaking to a specific group right now. If you've already apologized and they said something along the lines of, I'm sorry you feel that way, I'm sorry you feel that I hurt you, I just want to be very clear that that's not an apology. That's pride. Saying I'm sorry you feel that way is another way of saying I don't really see what I've done in this dynamic, and I'm not really wanting to look at myself and examine myself. So be mindful of this, that you've been here before, that you don't want to get back on the wheel of insanity by being the savior, by being the one who wants to fix everything. And I get it, I'm the same way. Because I see the bigger picture, that it's all just pettiness. Come on, these are all things in duality. Let's heal some timelines together. Let's have a conversation. Let's not be threatened by the conversation. Let's put it on a coat hanger. All these issues that we have, let's put them on a coat hanger and discuss them without identifying as them, because we understand that at a soul level, they go way back. These are not new energies, and they honestly have nothing to do with that particular person. These are Akashic imprints What does that mean? It means it's a record that you've been carrying with you for thousands of lifetimes in linear time. From a multidimensional standpoint, there are parallel realities that you're still experiencing now. So there's another aspect of yourself that's sitting on a different timeline, experiencing trauma, experiencing a lack of safety, experiencing persecution, experiencing being ostracized or being alienated. So you have all these different aspects sitting on different timelines, and you guys are all working together to solve the puzzle. You're all working together to solve the puzzle. That's why I think it's extremely important that we call upon our counterparts, those other aspects of who you are that are standing or sitting on different timelines, and ask them what they need from you. Ask them how you can assist. And you can ask them for assistance too. But they have intel that you need, and you have intel that they need, and it's when we start to love ourselves that we're able to bridge all these realities and unify again. But in friendships, we have to be able to have communicative skills where you say, hey, let's sit down and talk about what happened. Because I'm convinced that what happened wasn't new, it's historical. And it originates back many, many, many lifetimes. And through the healing of it, we're going to be beaming that light to those other aspects of ourselves that need that reparation, that need that healing. I had this thought a couple of months ago of how amazingly cool would it be if we could say, hey, let's heal some timelines together today. Let's sit down and talk about every thought that we had, even if they were dark. Let's talk about every thought that we've had to bring resolution to something that goes beyond us, to something that we probably can't even wrap our minds around. But you can. If you actually meditate, you can see how galactic wars are when energies keep clashing. Boo, 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 boo. Right? And everyone's vying for power, for power and control. And no one's budging. And so these different energies, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say that you do have conflict with someone, and then you can hear the telepathic thoughts or the thoughts through your telepathy that they're having about you that might be negative. That would be a mild version of a galactic war, where there are energies above you, if you will, that are fighting and they're duking it out. So my point today is that we eventually have to find that maturity within us to come together, to join forces and say, let's put these issues on a coat hanger and discuss them. And if we get reactive for a minute, that's okay. Let's just breathe through it. None of us are perfect. There's things from one perspective we are. From a different perspective, we are flawed and we make mistakes sometimes. And then the ego gets the best of us and our pride kicks in and we're like, I'm not going to call that person. But my message for you today is, if you know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you've already cleaned up your end of the street, meaning that you've already apologized for your doings, and they've said something like, I'm sorry you feel that way, they're not awake enough yet. It takes a big person to say, hey, I messed up. I'm really sorry. I slipped. And I am holding myself accountable. Apologies can reset any friendship in a second. But what happens is that the pride starts to hijack, the ego hijacks the experience and starts to distort your mind. It starts to distort your perception of things. I want you to look at your text. Did you apologize? Cool. Then you're in the clear. If they haven't reached out to you and said, I'm really sorry as well, I finally see what I did to you. This thought came to me this morning that there are breakthroughs and then there are drive-throughs. And sometimes on our spiritual path, it won't be a drive-through. It can be a drive-through if you just apologize. But I'm talking about coming to those realizations at a conscious level. That can take time sometimes. And the message I always get is, Phil, don't rob this person of a breakthrough that they might have with God or Source. Don't rob them of a breakthrough. Because if you always call them back and you want to make everything okay again, even though it's going to resolve it from one perspective, it's probably going to happen again because they didn't really understand why it happened in the first place. That's why I'm not able to be in friendships that don't want to talk about things. They just want to sweep things under the rug and let's move forward. Let's move forward. That doesn't work in my world. Because when we're awake, we understand that everything is an energetic, and that energetic is going to bleed into every dynamic, into every situation, into every event, into every scenario. It has to. Because it's something deeper. It's a deeper root that needs your attention. And if you're not giving it your undivided attention, it's going to happen again. That's just how it works. That's karma. But karma is a good thing. Karma gives you an opportunity. It gives you a choice. Are you going to stay in that wheel of insanity? Or are you going to look at me? Are you going to look at me once and for all and clear this so that we can truly move forward without an elephant in the room? And I think so many people have that elephant in the room, and it makes the friendship awkward. And it's like, hey, if we just talked about it like adults, like conscious beings who are coming together, not only to promote healing at an individual level, but to promote healing collectively. I think that's maturity. That's a form of giving. That's a form of being service to others. When you can say, okay, I'm not sure I want this right now. And by the way, if you don't want this right now, don't do it. But sometimes it's the ego that says that. It's the ego that says, I'm done with that person. But ask yourself, are you still playing in a play? Are you still an actor in a play of duality? How long are you going to perpetuate the duality? And if you're the one who always reaches back out to make things right, with them not having an understanding that they hurt you, then that's duality as well. Because by keeping that energetic alive in your system, you're going to find yourself in a very similar position again very soon. The message I'm getting right now is trust your intuitive built-in technology. Trust your intuitive built-in technology. You are here, you are psychic, you were never crazy, you're not crazy. And unless you start to trust and believe that this person owes you an apology, how could you ever enhance that psychic ability? We all have psychic abilities, but obviously if you focus on them and you believe what you're hearing or seeing with your third eye, you're going to enhance those abilities. You're going to accentuate your psychic awareness. But if you doubt yourself and you're always picking up the phone and gravitating back to the abuser, which is, they're not the abuser, but you're playing out an old energy of, I just want to make things right and I can't stand not being okay with this person, so I'm going to do this. That's a form of, it's almost like when people are trying to control their environment and unless their house is clean, they're not able to function, which I get that because I like my place to be clean. So there is validity in that perspective. But mastery is like, can you be in the midst of chaos? Can you be in the midst of a storm and find peace? Can you be the eye of the storm? Can you be the eye of the storm? Can you be in the Tao? Can you be in that midpoint? So we can't just want to go fix things because we're uncomfortable. If that person owes you an apology, it is not your responsibility to tip the scale back. That's not your responsibility. If when you think about something, you don't feel peaceful, trust that. Maybe God or the universe or source, whatever you believe in, is saying, hey, that's a red zone. We don't want you in this right now. And why would God, why would source place a wedge between you and another person? Why? Because it wants to awaken that person. The Creator wants to awaken that person. Their angels want to awaken that person. And if you're always calling them up, they're going to always feel vindicated, like, I told you so. That doesn't help them. So I said this recently, but your job isn't to be Holy Ghost Jr. and make everything right just because you're uncomfortable. But the thing is, I understand why you're uncomfortable. It's because you operate within more of a unity consciousness mindset. So within unity, we don't like to have discord. We don't like to have disharmony. So that's that bigger person that you are. But remember, if you're repeating an old pattern and you've been here before and your tendency is to always pick up your phone or text them and say, I miss you so much, I'm so sorry. And be really careful because the ego is crafty. The ego is going to say, you feel good today, call them. How you're feeling that day, the frequency that you're vibrating at, the dimension that you're residing in that day may not be where they're residing. So everything is like hunky-dory for you. Everything is like a rainbow unicorn for you. But that doesn't mean they're having that epiphany at the same time as you. You see? The ego is so sneaky that it will weasel its way in when you're having a good day and say, just call your friend. You guys, just make it right. Get back on the same page. I've done that before. I've done it and we've reconciled. And guess what? A couple months later, it happens again. Trust your intuitive built-in technology. Trust that you are not crazy. If you've already said sorry and you've already neutralized it on your end, they owe you that apology as well. They have to hold themselves accountable. They owe you that. And if they can't give you that, that's okay. You're going to follow what feels peaceful. What feels peaceful is moving away from all that commotion, from all that noise. Moving away from it. Focusing on now. But obviously, from a different perspective, you may not feel peaceful if there's no resolution. That's where you have to use your discernment. Is it my ego that wants me to call them? Is it my ego that wants me to contact them? Because believe me when I tell you, there are entities out there who are playing a part in this. I had a client session yesterday and they had a really hard time establishing firm boundaries with people. If you don't have firm boundaries in life with a person, with a human, well, guess what? There are energies that are in that same arena of vibration. They're in that same vibrational range. These entities are invisibles. They're invisible beings. They're frequencies. So if you lack a boundary with a person, I promise you there's a crack in your wall and there are other bees that are attaching onto you that you can't see with your physical eyes, but they exist. When we become an energy reader, we can see all of that. You can see like a dark cloud around someone. You can see all the stuff that's attached to them, which is really just another way of saying like that they're misaligned, that they've gotten off the beaten path and they need to get back in alignment. But you can have all kinds of critters attached onto you when you don't have boundaries. So ask yourself, is it helping my case to always be the one to initiate communication with this person? Is that helping my case? So what I was being shown is that this month is absolutely incredible, and I'll tell you why. Because anytime these emotions come up with such intensity, how you choose to perceive them is going to dictate whether or not you move into a whole new stratosphere or if you stay stuck in that wheel, if you stay stuck in duality. Everything is a vibrational offering, and you get to decide how you want to see it, how you want to view it. So right now there are collective imprints that date back thousands of lifetimes. Things that surround war, things that surround persecution, things that surround victimhood. All of this stuff is coming up. All right? So things are reaching for everyone because we're all part of the collective. So let's say that there's a massive file or a document that's being cleared from the Akash. Well, at a personal level, at an individual level, everything that pertains to you is going to come up as well. But please understand that it's not about the person. This is about you and you. This is about you and your own divine record. What the ego mind does, what the third dimensional mind does, is let's say that you start missing someone. Your ego is going to attach that feeling to the last person who was in your life, or to your recent lover, or to your recent friend that you had a falling out with. That's what the ego does. That's the third dimensional mind, because it's not able to see beyond the purview of the consciousness. It only knows what it knows. It's familiar rotating within that same orbit. Okay? So your ego mind is going to attach everything that you feel right now to a person. But it's not about the yes, it is about the person, because our door is always open for whoever wants to show up with respect and integrity and love and accountability. But it's deeper than that. It's an energy that's been buried in your vibratory field for such a long time. It's an energy that's been in your basement for so long. And it's now coming up so that it can, so that you can experience a cellular release and release those old codes and then input new codes. It's all codes, it's all mathematics. So the reality that you're in right now is an externalized presentation of the codes or the coordinates that are in your system. If you change the codes, not by bypassing, but by really acknowledging what's going on and utilizing your discernment to really come to the best conclusion for you, if you recode yourself, if you recode your DNA, guess what? Your external reality starts to shift accordingly. And I'm sure many of you have experienced this. You have a scarcity mindset, your bank account is empty, which perpetuates the scarcity mindset. As soon as you change the scarcity mindset, your reality changes. So if you have an idea of what you want your friendships and relationships to look like, and you're unwavering in them being respectful, in them being communicative, then why would you backpedal and call someone who hasn't communicated with you yet, who hasn't admitted to the fact that they've hurt you? That's not exactly setting in or setting the tone for your next reality or for your new reality. You have to mean what you say. Your actions have to follow, they have to be cohesive with your train of thought. They have to be cohesive with your walk as a spiritual being here. They have to be cohesive. If you say one thing and do the next, You see what I'm saying? I was meditating on this the other day. Like, I went through a phase where I was more of the Joker, because we kind of have to go through that phase. The Joker meaning that you've mastered being in the observer so much that you can say anything you want and then study people. And I even see people doing this on social media. They're awake spiritually, but then they'll do something with their body, or they'll take a selfie and say something. But I can tell that they're not defined by that. They're in the observer, and they're studying everyone else's reactions and their judgments. I went through that phase for a long time. You can call it the trickster, you can call it the Joker, where you're completely awake and aware, and you will say things or do things just to trigger people's darkness, or to evaluate them, to examine them. You're not examining the person per se. You're examining the record. So it's a form of being like Inspector Gadget, and you're like, ooh, that's interesting. That person just judged me. Ooh, that's interesting. That person is for it. So they understand empowerment, but they may not be able to see that I'm just in the observer right now. What the guides have been teaching me, what the nine have been showing me, is that everything has to be congruent. Meaning that if you hold yourself to a certain level, or if you see yourself in a certain regard, your body has to equate that. It has to be proportionate. Your actions have to be proportionate to everything that you're meditating on, to everything that you are. So if you're mastering your mind and you know how to be in the observer, don't go do something to throw people off. Don't do that. Yes, you're awakened, but your physical body or your actions are still displaying an immature behavior. And it's when you can merge the two that you really start to experience grace and peace and love and unity. And even though to you may not be in a combative mode, whatever you're putting out there is actually calling forth combativeness. It's calling forth defensiveness from other people. So that's still part of your reality. That's still your creation. And there's so much beauty in not playing those games anymore, in not being the trickster or the Joker. But we have to go through that phase for a while, because that's your way of debunking reality. That's your way of exposing all of the darkness, which were dark aspects of yourself, but now you get to see them from that neutral place. Like I see you. Oh, you're the one who's displaying unawakenedness by judging me right now. But that's still immature to some level. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So this kind of goes hand in hand with friendships. If the person who hasn't apologized to you yet and given you a sincere apology, if they haven't apologized, they might be observing you, but that's still not love. You're hurting. Why aren't they reaching out to you? You see my point? It's because they don't have the wherewithal. The ego, an entity, has attached onto them and is blinding them. So they're feeling like they're on a high horse, like, yeah, oh. But they're completely removed from their higher self. They've completely distanced themselves from that divine blueprint, even though from another viewpoint, that is part of it, because eventually they'll have that realization and they'll come around. We don't have to keep going through different friends and different friends and different friends. We have to recognize that all of these issues are going to float up to the surface to be acknowledged and released. Do you have friends who are capable of walking this path alongside with you and resolving these issues? Friendships should not be that difficult. They will be at times, but if you set your ego aside, if you set your pride aside, it's not that difficult. You just say sorry. That's it. These entities, they will stop at nothing to harvest your energy. They will give you a feeling that you're on a high because you're not speaking to someone anymore. That's BS. That's rubbish. So you can expect a lot of emotions uprising this month. But please, please don't fall into the booby trap of calling this person again and again and again. You deserve that apology. You're human. You have emotions. You have feelings. You deserve that apology. So don't shortchange yourself. Don't accept less. Don't shrink, even though in that moment those entities will convince you that you're doing the right thing by calling them. That's because they can already foresee that you guys are going to have another tiff and another tiff and they'll be able to gather more energy from that. These dark entities, I don't love to call them dark, but you get the idea. These entities, they don't operate within time and space. They don't care about what they're getting from you today. They do. If they can get a buffet of energies, they'll get you guys back in touch. Everything will be fine and dandy. And then next thing you know, there's a bigger conflict that happens. And that's more energy for them. So we have to learn how to distinguish spirit from ego. If you have that urge to call them back and you're like, oh, I can't stand not being in touch with them. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I need to call them right now. That's probably ego. Because the spirit is peaceful. The spirit doesn't interfere with God's plans. If you don't like that word, that's fine. With source, with the universe, it's all the same thing to me. The spirit doesn't interfere in galactic affairs. We enable people so much because we're thinking about the friendship, and the friendship is one component, but there's a bigger picture. What if that person's guides is trying to awaken them to something bigger, and every time you interfere, you get in the way of that? You intercept that signal. Start thinking bigger. If you metaphorically touch the water, and it burns, or you don't feel peace around it, trust that. Maybe the universe wants you guys to get back in touch. Maybe the universe wants you to have a relationship. But right now it's taking care of them awakening. And you might get in the way of that. I hope this is making sense for you all. So don't automatically associate what you're feeling to that person. Go within yourself. Open up your heart. Acknowledge this isn't easy. I miss this person. That's okay. It could be past life grief. It could be past life grief that you just need to feel so that you can bring that process to completion. Your angels and your guides want you to know that if you follow peace, P-E-A-C-E, if you follow what feels peaceful, they're going to take care of everything for you. If you think about someone, or if you think about calling them and you start to get that warfare in your mind, like the angels and the demons attacking each other, guess what? Just let it go. Maybe you're not supposed to interfere. Maybe by doing so, you become the entity. You become the parasite. Keep following what feels warm. Oh, it feels comfortable. Oh, I'm wrapped in a blanket and life is easy and it's flowy. That's what you want to start entraining to. You're entraining yourself to a higher frequency, to a higher way of being, to a vibrational existence. So as these energies surface for you and for all of us, don't shove them back down by placing the call, because that's all you're going to do. Understand that there's a bigger clearing going on. There's a bigger clearing going on that is going to allow you to move into a higher state of awareness, to upgrade your DNA, to enhance your psychic ability. But examine all the details, because we can really refine our psychic abilities if we learn how to control ourselves rather than try to control the situation, meaning I want to be friends with this person because I'm uncomfortable right now. If you can learn how to control and manage yourself and then dissect all the energies that are floating in your field, all of them, without thinking that you have to do anything. Just be. If it isn't peaceful, change your radio station, or stay on the same station and communicate with those waves, with those radio waves. Get in touch, have a dialogue. All right? So it's going to be a big month. Lots of energies coming up. I hope this message helped you. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And thank you for all the donations. I received a bunch of donations after my last video. And I'm not saying this so that you can donate now. It's really just that in 2011, 2012, when a lot of us were awakening, we talked about how wonderful it would be to live in a world where we could freely share this information. I mean, you guys see me doing more videos now, and share this information and be able to live off of what people choose to give. And even if they don't give, it's totally fine. We understand that. But it's been such a 360 or 180, whatever they call it, to come full circle and say, wow, like this is happening and I get to witness this in my life. So I feel like the shifts on the planet are rapidly increasing, and we're witnessing so many different shifts taking place, not only individually, but also planetarily and also cosmically. So I hope this helped you guys, and I will see you guys soon. Much love.